Hello folks, this is the brand new Ducati Scrambler for 2023 and they've given it a whole load of new updates all across the bike, including some very fancy new tech. But in adding all this extra stuff, have they taken away from its character, or do these new features make what was already a great bike even better? Well, we've been riding it for the last 2 days in Valencia in Spain, so in this video I'll give you my 10 favourite things about it, and then at the end I'll give you my verdict. Let's start with an obvious point, and that would be the engine. It's one of the reasons that I fell in love with the 2015 version that I actually bought myself. Now, you could be mistaken for thinking it's the exact same power plant. I have been reassured by the team that when I say updates to this bike, the figure that was actually quoted was about 70% of the bike has had attention, including the engine, although it still retains all the same character and charm and punch of the original. And it does have roughly the same sort of power output, so 73 horsepower at 8,250 revs and about 65 Newton meters at 7,000 revs. Next point are the rider modes, or more broadly speaking, the electronics, which on this model have had a full revisal. It's also now ride-by-wire, and the fact that that throttle is electronically managed means that it's much smoother than the version that I had. I do think they refined it over the years, but this one is noticeably smoother than the previous bike. Probably most noticeably when you're in a town and you're doing lower speeds, lots of starting and stopping, you can feel it on the initial bite. It's really smooth to roll on. And then when you get on the faster stuff, it's really easy to be consistent with your speed heading into a corner. It has two rider modes, either road or sport, and I would say that personally I did feel a difference between the two. It just feels a little bit more lively, a bit more responsive, a bit more alert in sport mode. Both of them have the same power output, it just delivers it in a slightly different way. It's also got a bunch of rider aids, including 4-level traction control, which you can turn off, and cornering ABS. The gearbox is silky smooth and direct, and I believe actually they've lightened the clutch on this version. Either way, you have a hydraulic clutch. The levers actually also have some adjustability, which is always useful. And I will hold my hands up and say I'm not the best rider out there, so if, like me, sometimes you can be a bit ham-fisted and indelicate with your gear changes, this bike is very forgiving. You can also give it the optional extra quick shifter if you so desire, which I believe comes as standard on the full throttle version. This point I'm a little bit conflicted on, and that would be the TFT display, because I do like a more classic looking clock, if I'm being honest, but the information, the clarity of that display is really good and shouldn't be overlooked, definitely should be praised. You also have the option of speccing connectivity for your phone as well if you want. Now, this is a great point at which to give a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, Quadlock, because while you can spec up phone integration on this bike, the other option is to mount your phone to the bars and use that to navigate while you're on the go. Our recommendation at MOTOBOB is to use Quadlock. We've been using it for years and it's genuinely the best phone mounting solution we've tested, with a whole bunch of super secure mounting options for any style of bike and cases for a wide variety of popular phones. They've also got a great range of accessories like a vibration dampener to protect your phone, wireless charging head to keep it juiced up, and a rain poncho so you can use it even in wet conditions. Genuinely, this is what we use whenever we want to mount our phones to the bike, so we wholeheartedly recommend them. Plus, there's a 10% discount code in the description along with a link to their website so you can pick up yours. Once again, massive thanks to Quadlock for their support, and with that, back to the bike. Weight loss and refined geometry across the entire bike definitely needs mentioning as well. They've tweaked it rather than making an entirely new design, which is always a good start when you've got such a good base to begin with. There's a little bit less trail on the front wheel, for example, so it's a bit sharper to turn in. I believe it's also a slightly shorter wheelbase. Seat height is 795 millimeters. You can go for a higher or lower option if you want. They've moved that rear shock so it is now more centrally located. And of course, it is now 4 kilograms lighter, which doesn't sound like a lot, I will grant you, but bear in mind they started with a very light bike to begin with. And that's always been one of the big strengths of the Ducati Scrambler. It's got a fantastic power to weight ratio and it's very easy to chuck around. It's always been a nimble bike and this one continues in that tradition. I've always found the balance of equipment on the Scrambler to be really good. It all works together cohesively. So all right, they haven't changed the brakes. It uses the same 4-piston Brembo on the front and single piston Brembo on the rear. And they use the same Kayaba forks and rear shock. But they all still work really well, and it gives a very consistent performance. Then of course we have styling, and it's possibly going to split a crowd between those people who prefer the 2015 version or those that like the new styling on this. And I have to say, I probably was one of the crowd that preferred the 2015 version until I saw this in the flesh, and it really has grown on me. And I probably do prefer the looks of this one now over that version. I really like the new LED lights front to back. I love the look of that new headlight. I definitely like the neatened up wiring and cabling on the front. I like the new low profile seat. You probably wouldn't want to go touring on it, but it's perfectly comfortable for everything else. And it's got these X logos embossed in it. The tail section looks really nice. I love the way they've inlaid these grips for your pillion passenger, and I've been following a lot of bikes today, somewhere in the middle of the pack, but I've appreciated it because I get to look at that lovely LED light all the more, and that gorgeous chunky tyre as well. The biggest change, of course, are these plastic panels across the tank, which I love the idea of, because you can theoretically change the colour on this within 30 to 45 minutes. So they say. And they offer it in 9 different colour variants, most of which inspired by classic Scrambler heritage from Ducati. And if your tastes are anything like mine, you're possibly considering mixing and matching colours as well. I'm sure you can make some great combinations with this. Having also spent some time with them, I love the kitted out variants you could go for, like the full throttle with its flat track inspired looks, as well as the quick shifter and Termi exhaust, or the gorgeous night shift with those spoke wheels, both of which come in for about £1,000 more than this. Definitely one of my favourite points, and one of the reasons I love mine so much is the universal likability of the bike. It suits all kinds of riders. Some of the aims they mentioned, even from the original design, were the words fun, easy to ride, and character, and I think it meets all 3 of those easily. It's obviously accessible and unintimidating if you are a new rider, but equally, if you're an experienced rider, it's got plenty of fun and excitement on hand. The balance of power and lightweight, the agility of this bike mean that you can really just grab it by the scruff of the neck and have a blast. You probably want to hear what it sounds like, so let me fire it up. I mean, it's polite, it's Euro 5 compliant, but it's still got a lovely little pop on the overrun. It's cool. So what is the verdict? Well, you'd be glad to know that it still has all the charm and charisma of the original. It just has a few techie upgrades, which make it feel a little bit more refined, a little bit smoother, and keep it in line with its competition without losing what made the original so good. Now, although they haven't mentioned any update coming for the Scrambler 1100, it does leave me wondering whether or not they're going to make one. And if you're not sure whether you prefer this or its bigger brother, we have a video for you. Rob's going to put it on the screen somewhere here. Click it if you want, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Oh, I'm good, mate. Yeah, no, I'm fine. Thank you, though. Thanks. Yeah.
Nature's lovely.
Oh. Well. Who's this guy? Thank you, mate.